Hello and welcome to NAB Show Express 2020, the future of delivery theater. I'm Joe Secc with GatesAir, and I'm going to spend a little time today talking about expanding the reach of Atsc 3.0 networks with respect to the future. So, little agenda here. First, I'm going to talk about single frequency networks in general, and not a lot on that. But then we're going to move on to a cloud delivery idea to transmission portals or points of presence or even existing transmitter sites that may be something to think about. And then lastly, I'm going to take a look at an in-band distribution link using some innovative ATSC3 technology. So SFNs. So single frequency networks have long been deployed in other worldwide OFDM-based systems for broadcasting, such as DAB, DVB-T, and T2, for example. And while SFN can be applied to a single carrier system such as 8VSB, the design of such systems is very exacting and reliant on a myriad of receiver equalizer implementation differences to realize among manufacturers out there. So in this sense, SFNs is not a future delivery idea. It's a here and now idea. However, with ATSC3 being new to the U.S. Broadcasting scene, being able to deploy SFNs as a methodology to increase your delivery or improve your delivery or make it more robust is a new idea. So a shift from a single high power, high tower TV transmitter paradigm is readily realizable to broadcasters moving to the ATSC3 space. However, such a shift is met with pros and cons, and we have to weigh the differences and decide what our best pursuit is to realize this. So on the pro side with SFNs, we get more uniform signal coverage. The signal is more readily received indoors. It's more readily received by mobile devices, outdoors and indoors, and has the potential to remove any shadowed areas in your coverage. It also provides us some network redundancy. In case of failure, only part of the network is off the air, as contrasted to the high power, high tower single broadcast approach. If something fails there, then the entire signal is down. So depending on the architecture, only mobiles may be unable to receive, in case of the failure this is, only mobiles may be unable to receive while fixed devices tied to better antennas are still able to receive. This is good, especially in emergency situations. And especially in emergency situations where disaster has struck and a smaller tower might have been damaged while the larger high power, high tower built to today's tough standards withstands the test of time and stays on the air. That's a hallmark of U.S. broadcasting. So there's also a wealth of knowledge of OFDM network planning available from many of the communities, European community and so forth, on SFN deployment for T and T2 that we can draw on, as well as modern software that incorporates that for consulting engineers and station engineers to plan a network. On the con side, more sites may mean more miles to cover for maintenance. You've got additional infrastructure costs. That's always been one of the negatives to a distributed transmission architecture, is that the single high power transmitter architecture is very cost effective, and to distribute your architecture adds cost, even though you're not necessarily have a large tower. You also maybe get different equipment types over time, which may have different interfaces and different operational things you need to learn. However, with modern technology such as SNMP and network management, hopefully those can be funneled into something that's always common from the operator's point of view. And there are potentially leasing and site access agreements to deal with, so some more paperwork, and additional site licensing with the government as possible. And maybe the bigger thing could be a bit emotional. although it's a real business consideration that, change can be hard. You've always had the big stick, big transmitter, and going to a different architecture than before, is a bit unsettling. The change is unsettling. However, if we're going to, blanket an area with signal for ubiquitous coverage, especially to mobile devices or indoor devices, I'll just say modern day consumption devices, we need a blanket, a signal blanket, and everybody has to buy in. And as I alluded to earlier, a smaller tower is more susceptible to storm outage than a larger tower, just because it's not built to the same standard that larger towers are. So I'm just going to cover this one popular single frequency network idea as an example, where here on the left we've got the classic single high power high tower transmitter, and it's putting out its signal, and you can see its signal strength there and the antenna pattern, how it drops off. And we can close into the tower, we get indoor, outdoor, portable, and maybe a home gateway receives. In the gray area, we get outdoor mobile reception, and then we get fixed high definition service in the yellow area out to our 41 dBu contour. And that's the service that we all know very much today and work with. So the one idea that's been floated for some time is to, you've got a large investment, a large history, and a very robust infrastructure at that high power, high tower site. So let's maintain that main transmitter, and let's augment your coverage area with a ring of transmitters outside, out in the contour, and maybe having those antennas from those sites, they be directional and point in areas of populations that need to be better served. They can point inward toward the main transmitter due to the OFDM nature of the signal. As long as our guard interval is respected, we can now achieve where in the orange area we have near the high power, high tower transmitter, we've got deep indoor and mobile high definition reception or HD reception. And out in the main coverage area, we have, I won't call them hot spots, I'll call them warm spots of indoor, outdoor, portable coverage. And we easily get a fixed, home gateway coverage and fixed service. So we fill in the contour a lot better, as is noted by the graphic up there with the signal strength. So, that just goes to show you that with even more transmitters of maybe smaller power or so forth, we can make this whole gray area green. And by making that whole gray area green, we've blanketed this area with signal coverage, and can realize a new ecosystem. No longer television fixed to a receive device in the home, but it can be in your hand or on the go. So now take a look at an innovative potential solution on delivery of services from the cloud for ATSC3 transport to transmitters, especially if we're going to go to a new architecture, a distributed architecture. So on the right, we've got our well-known fixed transmitter site, and maybe I believe that's in Austria, so it's not a U.S. site, but it's indicative of a very well-built structure. Built for fixed service, but you can see in the mountains in the background there's going to be shadowing. Inevitably, there's going to be shadowing. So that needs to be filled in. So, if we look forward to things such as 5G and so forth, where we're talking about transmitters in the neighborhood, on the light pole or whatever in your neighborhood, the same can be done for an ATSC3, a neighborhood transmitter, so to speak. And getting the signal to that transmitter is going to be potentially a little bit different than getting that signal to your main transmitter. So we're going to have a lot more transmitters to feed. Perhaps the cloud can do us some favors here. So we did a bit of an interop test using Secure Reliable Transport. That's what SRT stands for. We're partnered with Treveni Digital in New Jersey. We set up a link from New Jersey where they have a scheduler broadcast gateway, ATSC3 scheduler gateway, and it outputs the known STLTP transport protocol to in a high power, high tower infrastructure that would feed from the studio to the transmitter. However, in this scenario, we're feeding it to a secure, reliable transport device to encapsulate that STLTP stream in a secure, reliable transport stream. It traversed the firewall that Treveni went out through the internet, and we brought it down in our Mason, Ohio laboratory facility. We didn't go through a firewall. We had an outside internet service that we could connect to, and we had a receive platform for the Ascent Media device, and then output the STLTP that originated in New Jersey and took it to a exciter modulator and produced RF in Ohio. So essentially, we went from New Jersey through the cloud to Cincinnati, Ohio, and encapsulated the stream. So that could be just expanded to your cloud provider. And these schedulers now are being made by the manufacturers on commercial off-the-shelf hardware platforms, so they're easily virtualized, and you can go point to multi-point. I'll talk about it in a second. So why secure, reliable transport? Well, number one, it is secure. You can encrypt the content in AES 128.256. The current ATSC3 STL platform is not secured. There's an authentication protocol being developed for it, but it's only authenticated, but it's not secured. Here, if you're going through a cloud provider or an internet service provider of something to get your service out to whatever transmitter site, it's important that it be secure. And secondly, it's reliable. The SRT algorithm has a lot of design in it to recover from severe packet loss. It was designed for a high quality, secure, low latency transport of video. So think of streaming services, using UDP data transfer protocol. So we can't use TCP even though it guarantees delivery, because latency and buffering are concerns here. We can't have that much latency and wait for retransmissions. Too many of them. UDP gives us high throughput and low latency. However, it doesn't give us any delivery assurance. So SRT incorporates innovative technology to overcome a lot of the UDP's best effort reputation. There is a buffer window you can set up, and it can the devices can communicate with each other and resend lost packets to help with that case. And then, the transport side of things is not too applicable here, but nonetheless, in a streaming video sense, SRT can adapt to dynamically changing network conditions. So in our case, we're going to need high reliability and negotiated quality of service from a cloud provider, because the bit rate's constant. And SRT is scalable, it is firewall friendly, and it's open source. The community can extend and enhance and the SRT code, and it is backed by over 200 organizations in the Alliance, and many manufacturers make product to use SRT. So that's why we chose SRT for this. It's a connection-oriented protocol. It provides transport of media and control messages. So they're in the SRT paradigm. You saw in that picture earlier that there's a caller or a sender, an encoder, or a receiver. So caller, listener, and they can also be set up in rendezvous mode to establish a handshake between them. So it's independent of source and destination. The sender doesn't necessarily have to be the caller. The listener doesn't have to necessarily be the destination. It can be vice versa. You can call from either end. However, I just depending on your architecture with your cloud provider, you might, that'll depend on how you set that up. And while the Atsc 3 STL transport protocol is multicast IP and can go to multiple destinations, here with SRT, we can also send it to multiple destinations. With shown here is a scheduler and transport encoder that would be an SRT encoder that would be housed in the cloud or in, on-prem, off-prem, contracted service, whatever. So hosted in the cloud, and we can send it to multiple receive locations. So transmit site 1, transmit site 2, transmit site N. What we need, then you're going to have on the far right, you're going to have a transmitter. That's for granted, taken for granted. So we have to have is this additional SRT receive device to pull it out from the cloud, undo this, deliver it to us securely, give us all the benefits of retransmissions and so forth, and error correction capability that the SRT mechanism can provide to deliver on-air service with the SRT. So there inevitably will be network imperfections that we have to mitigate. So Secure Reliable Transport has algorithm to help mitigate those network imperfections. In addition, we can add SMPTE 2022 forward error correction, and then we can also put on, use some network diversity and use a dynamic stream splicing based on 2022-7 to make this ultra reliable. So within SRT's algorithms are measures to mitigate the effects of delays, jitter, packet loss, etc. Large buffers help, but though everything has a price, and the expense of the big buffers are latency. And we're business of broadcasting, we need to get the bits out to the audience in a timely manner. So one of the things SRT does is, there's a mechanism that recreates the input signal characteristics on the receive side, which serves to reduce the need for buffering. So, shown in this graph, your source signal has a characteristic as shown in green, and then through the network, IP network, there's jitter and so forth that's added and imprinted on the signal, and the receive end, the receive buffer, can then pull those characteristics out and essentially deliver you the signal that was delivered to the source device. So there are other mechanisms within SRT, but that's a highlight to make sure that we receive the signal with characteristics that the transmitter saw. Well, what if the SRT algorithm and its retransmissions and its buffers and so forth still delivers us a missing packet here and there? Or that would be, it would not deliver the missing packet. We can put on the Atsc 324 STL TP spec specifies SMPTE 2022-1 forward error correction. So within the SRT device, we can add the SRT tunnel via UDP multiplexing to be used by the exciter. So shown here, we have a stream that was coming from New Jersey. The data stream was at 9.5 megabits per second, and we added both row and column forward error correction here on the order of 2 and 1.5 megabits per second, 1.6. That's overhead, but that helps correct for the packet loss. So the row column matrix of 2022 can be added to help correct the signal at the exciter's front end if any errors propagate through the SRT tunnel. So here is shown that the sender is putting in the data and the FEC, and we have the output side that was here in our Mason, Ohio facility, and we're actually transcoding the data out on the destination IP address we want, and we get the content data as well as the FEC data, and the exciter sees the SMPTE 2022 error correction matrix, and in this instance, when I grabbed this screen, had not lost or recovered any packets as of yet, showing that the SRT algorithm was working just as we needed to. And this is very, very important, because the ATSC3 STLTP algorithm is intolerant to packet loss. In the gateway, it is actually starting and building up baseband frames. And unlike a null packet in the MPEG domain, there is not a mechanism to insert null baseband frames, so to speak. So if we have belt and suspenders with SRT algorithm and some SMPTE 2022 FEC, we can really make this a bulletproof system by using dynamic stream splicing, by using network diversity. So if you have a on-prem system through a network, WAN 1, and you have a contracted cloud provider through WAN 2, these can be set up with time diversity and network diversity, and the streams are sent to the receive sites using 2 network paths. So with 2022-7, hitless operation can be achieved to overcome packet and network losses. So this isn't a switch. This can fill in for drop packets between one network and the other. Between all 3 of these technologies, we can build quite a reliable transmitter link from the cloud. And this is the result from Mason. We were receiving the information from New Jersey, and could tell on the Treveni stream scope as well as our LG TV that we were getting the service that was being originated there in New Jersey. So a potential cloud delivery architecture using SRT to help with reliability. Now I'm going to talk about a novel approach to using one of the ATSC3 technologies to think outside the box a little bit, okay? And it's called the in-band distribution link. And I give full due credit here to Yi-En Wu and his colleagues at the Communication Research Center in Ottawa, Ontario, for letting me present this. I've seen this presented on a couple of occasions with a few different applications, and I thought it was very well worth incorporating here in an ATSC3 related future of delivery discussion. So the in-band distribution link takes advantage of an innovative technology implemented in the ATSC3 transmission system, the physical layer, called layered division multiplexing. So layered division multiplexing, or LDM, is a new transmission scheme that overlaps multiple layers of signals with different power levels for different services and reception conditions. So, for each LDM layer, 100% of the channel bandwidth and 100% of the time are used to transmit the multi-layer signals to achieve a high spectrum efficiency. The core layer, sometimes this gets confusing because the core layer is actually the upper layer. So some people want to see that the core would somehow be at the bottom or the lower, but it's the upper layer because it's ultra robust for HD mobile, portable, and indoor reception. And high data rate enhanced layer or lower layer could be for 4K UHD or multiple HD fixed reception, and so forth. So we can see that we remove one of the powers, we just have one layer, and we could also have an enhanced layer, but it's shown in green, the future extension layer. So with just one layer shown here is, I believe that looks like a 256 QAM constellation, and we've got an enhanced layer with 256 QAM, excuse me. Oh, I guess the animation's wrong here, but let me go back. If you see here, we've got the core layer. You can see four 256 QAM constellations overlaid on each other because the core layer is QPSK, or 4 constellation points, and then the lower layer is modulated on top of that. So we have core layer and upper layer riding together, okay? So it can coexist with traditional time and frequency division multiplexing. So it's a third dimension. So many people are familiar with time division multiplexing, putting data in different slots of time. Likewise, frequency division multiplexing, we're putting data in different slices of frequency. So LDM basically uses it and puts a third axis on of power level and signal processing to multiplex more programs and services. So it's kind of a neat idea here. So we've got our frequency division multiplex signal and program 1, 2, 3 there divided in frequency. Then outward in time, we further time division multiplex other data. So those two have been combined for some time in different communications architectures. But now we add on the power axis, which is where the layered division multiplexing idea comes in. So we now work in 3 axes, time, frequency, and now power to achieve LDM. So the in-band distribution link can be used for a single frequency network, as well as bidirectional inter-tower communication networks. So the motivations behind this is that mobile and handheld services are getting increasingly important for future broadcast service. Like I said earlier, I might say it's today's service. But we have the connected car, Internet of Things, and new applications that are new applications coming out every day. So delivering robust mobile services, indoor and handheld devices are always challenging. And for good mobile and portable service, multiple transmission, single tower frequency networks are needed. Again, to blanket the area with signal to guarantee reception. Because the signal falls off with respect to square the distance from a transmitter site. So while you may have in a high power, high tower network, you have a very high power, but the signal level falls off rapidly as you get away from the tower. So it's exactly why the cellular network was built with cells as it was, lower power, but to blanket the signal to the lower power devices. So if we're going to reach those devices in a television broadcast world, we need a similar architecture. The issue is you need a studio to transmitter link to feed all these transmitters. So, but we need to balance it. A broadcaster is impractical to go build out a many tower network in a DMA. But more than one certainly can be advantageous. So, this link can be achieved by a full duplex in-band distribution link, as well as an inter-tower communication system, which is a reconfigurable wireless network for SFN broadcasting, and in-band inter-tower communications and Internet of Things, data casting, and connected car applications, while backward compatible with Atsc 3.0. So what's a single frequency network look like with a studio to transmitter link here? Shown here is, delivering STL signals to multiple transmitters can be expensive. So we've got, 3 transmitters shown here, and if you look at in the center, that'd be the classic, an ATSC through gateway at the studio, through an STL to a transmit site with an exciter and transmitter here at transmitter site A. And if you had to put on a microwave link or something else, satellite link to get to transmitters B, C, and D, putting that infrastructure in and so forth can get quite expensive. And you might need a, extra microwave frequency license, and, installation's costly, and fiber links can involve if you have to trench or put fiber that isn't there. And, we know many transmitter sites are at, mountains sometimes can mean rock. So putting fiber through there can sometimes be, impractical, if not impossible. So the solution is potentially to use a wireless in-band distribution link with the LDM technology. So within the television program multiplex, we insert signals within the LDM and use the LDM layer to carry signal for us and act as STL. So it has extra capacity, and it can provide an in-band distribution feed to all transmitters. So we're showing here that we've got an LDM with a robust mobile service and on top, and a fixed high data rate service in the enhanced layer. And below, we insert in that fixed service, because the fixed service link has the higher data capacity. So we insert data here for the in-band distribution link in that fixed service location. And also because that can be received in a more robust fashion if you have a receive antenna higher on the tower and that kind of a thing, than is something that is meant to be received in a home with a high gain antenna or other. So here's how the single frequency network with in-band distribution link may look. So you've got the robust mobile service and a fixed service and an in-band distribution link. So you've got the gateway with in-band distribution link going to transmitter A, and rather than having an STL to each of these sites now, we're using the RF signal, the ATSC3 signal that the main transmitter is broadcasting, and we're picking up the in-band distribution link signal and repeating it over here on transmitter B, transmitter C, and transmitter D. So what's needed is a receiver to pull the data out of that LDM layer and then broadcast it back onto the SFN transmitters. So there is a bit of a capacity loss by you're taking some of that data space away from the high rate fixed service. So you need to plan for that if you're going to try to exploit this technology. So there's also a different in-band distribution link structure that could be put together. And here we've got some acronyms: MBS for mobile broadcast service and FBS for fixed broadcast service, where up here in the upper left, we've got a distribution link of the MBS and fixed broadcast service on the enhanced layer. And on the right, we've got distribution link with core layer and enhanced layer. So phase one, you could do a 2-layer LDM TDM combination to achieve this, or see with the third dimension of adding the LDM here, we have a lot of possibilities that we can achieve. So on the lower left, we have a distribution link, mobile broadcast service on the 3rd layer, and fixed broadcast service on the enhanced layer. And then on the lower right, we've got a distribution link mobile broadcast service on the 3rd layer, and fixed broadcast service on the core layer plus the enhanced layer. So we've got a lot of options available to us using this technology. So, one of the things that makes it a bit difficult to achieve is that the single frequency networks need timing, and all transmitters need to be frequency and time synchronized. So this requires that the in-band distribution link data delivered to the secondary transmitters have a time advance relative to the broadcast service signal. So in classic SFN topologies, we're always figuring out what the maximum delay is, or the delay from this site to that site. Sometimes it's hard to think of the fact that somebody, instead of thinking of delays, need to think of the signal needs to go in advance, because there will be a delay. So when it is broadcast, it's on time. Okay. So this time advance needs to be sufficiently long to allow decode of the in-band distribution link data and re-encode, remodulate them into the SFN broadcast service signals. So we need a timing control mechanism. If we have T as the required time advance, and X(T), function X(T) is a broadcast service data, the in-band distribution link data should be transmitted as a function X(T) minus cap T. So that gives us the advance we need. And there could be a multi-hop in this link, multiple hops. Got a slide coming up to show you that the in-band distribution link data from different hop transmitters has to be sorry about that, T minus NT, or T minus NT plus T, minus NT plus 2T, respectively. So it depends on the network architecture. So, this is getting quite advanced, but it just shows you what's possible, if we use this new technology and think outside the box a little bit. So we could put together a mesh type network of ATSC3 broadcasts. It's scalable with population growth and market growth. And we distribute the signal. And here's showing the different timing required to get out to the far end. So you see at the very far end, we have X of T, but at the near end, we've got minus 3T. So we have to hold on to that signal for that long because the rest of the network needs the delay put in. Excuse me a minute. All right, so a different mesh network, it could be reconfigurable. So there's different network topology and routing for bidirectional communications. So rather than starting on the left, we can start on the right and move through the network the other way if we need to. So it's a mesh network, so to speak. So you can have bidirectional communications between towers, but each tower broadcasts an outgoing point-to-point in-band distribution link for the incoming side. And a third potential network is it could be self-organizing or self-healing. So if there's an emergency and a network failure, the network can change to make sure that if one link went down, we can get the information via a different pathway through the mesh network. So bidirectional communications in the inter-tower network. Those examples show that by using different distribution routes, the information can flow in different directions among broadcast towers. In an SFN network, it can embed a wireless network among all broadcasting towers. And it is actually not just limited to an SFN. It's a tower communication system embedded in broadcast infrastructure. Each tower can broadcast audio, video, data services while receiving information from other towers for relay, backhaul, broadcasting, a broadcast out, and a single input in system. So it is an inter-tower communication network, independent of any existing communication infrastructure, which can reduce the communication costs for broadcasters and potentially survive emergency and a natural disaster. And here's part of why. I mean, here's the two transmit towers, and shown here with an exaggerated curvature of Earth. It looks kind of like a water tower, but it's not. It's Earth curvature. So TV service and home handout reception has a low receiving antenna height and a small coverage area. But the broadcast tower could mount a high receive antenna to reach much further. So with this full duplex transmission, broadcast and multicast out, unicast in on the same frequency, we can put in an inter-tower communication link that is more robust and reachable to different sites without having to go through microwave paths or other distribution methods. So this is a potential centralized structure with SFN, distribution link, and inter-tower communications, where we've got a central transmitter and a distributed SFN system using an inter-tower communication network. So the in-band distribution link is one-way, high data rate. That's not for consumer services. And the inter-tower communication network is two-way for network control, consumer Internet of Things, data casting. Each tower can actually broadcast in that layer different contents. All right, so very, very flexible. So we're in the single frequency network for TV. We've got consumer television, multimedia data services, and all towers broadcast the same content for those media services meant for the public. So We have the capability for different cells to broadcast different data. We call that localized services. Some cells can operate as SFN if desired. LDM can be used to achieve tiered service and improve spectrum efficiency. And a robust transmission mode can be used to improve the reception in overlapping areas. So the intertower communication can be part of the broadcast core network. So a quick summary of the SFN in-band down or inter-tower downlink and in-band distribution link and inter-tower communication network. So SFNs, we talked about improved broadcast service quality for mobile, handheld, and indoor reception. And if we're going to compete with future services and streaming and so forth with over-the-air networks, it needs serious consideration. And new services, IoT, connected car, drone control, data casting are possible with the technology. And one-to-many timely services for large areas, traffic map updates, weather conditions. Didn't speak about emergency alerts, emergency warnings. Atsc3 has incorporated technology with advanced emergency information, not just a screen crawl anymore, but actually embedded data. An entire emergency channel can be put in, and if it's regional, it can be filtered by region, so that you're not on the north side of town receiving alerts for things on the south side of town that you're not concerned about. And the in-band distribution link can eliminate studio to tower link spectrum requirements of microwaves, may reduce operational costs, and also reduce spectrum sharing, or help with spectrum sharing and frequency reuse. So, and the inter-tower communication is probably the most technically advanced idea here. It's a scalable and reconfigurable network embedded in a broadcast system. We can do network queue and control that don't rely on other telecom infrastructure. Hopefully survives emergency and natural disaster. Allow data service among towers, IP-based Internet of Things, wide area data casting. I mean, it's very, very flexible, and I guess open to your imagination there of what you might be able to do with this if you had such a private network between towers in a future broadcast build out or idea. So I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me today and thinking about some ideas on expanding the reach of ATSC3 networks using some of these technologies as part of our future delivery ideas. Again, thank you so much.